will be exploring gradient descent implementation in the notebook. Just a small illustration of how the process occurs, following which we'll be exploring vectorization in machine learning. So first one is we will be exploring gradient descent. So as till now you've been across a couple of neural networks, a few good articles. So gradient descent is nothing but we go up and down, back and forth. That's back propagation. And what we try to do in machine learning is and in deep learning is get the optimized result. That means we will optimize the result so that in neural networks we have the least cost function and the loss is less. So that is what we will do in this illustration of gradient descent. So first thing is, let's take the case of gravity. So any object placed in the higher level tends to go down, right? So this happens because, as you have seen in physics, so an object always tries to go to a lower energy state. It will try to reach as low as possible at the energy state. Because, for example, here if you can see this football placed in a slope, which is at a higher energy state, which has a lot of potential energy and which is then translated into kinetic energy when going down. You can recollect all the concepts in physics. So it tries to achieve a lower energy state, which is somewhere at the bottom. So even gradient descent and DNNs, which are deep neural networks, the process, I mean the neural network tries to achieve as minimum cost function as possible. The cost function is nothing but the summation of all the losses combined for a given image or a data point. So this is an illustration. I will leave it up to you, but I will show you how we run its implementation in the Jupyter notebook, which is much more important. So this one is up to you as an assignment. Just go through this and try to understand this. I will run the same process in the next cell. So same thing. We are going to import NumPy, which is for NumPy arrays, and then define a function x, which takes an argument x, which is nothing but which returns x square plus 5. X double star 2 is x square, which is plus 5. So this is what the function will do. Next thing is, let us define a NumPy array by using the np.array function and a few elements under that from -6 to +6. And then y is nothing but the values of this NumPy array which are applied to func. Func is nothing but the function x square plus 5. And let us see what will be the results. So these are the results. -6 becomes x square plus 5, which is 36 plus 5, 41, and so on. So now we have a decent curve, which denotes x square plus 5. So this is a typical quadratic function graph. This is how it looks like. A U line on a two-dimensional axis. So this is how typical quadratic equations look like. This one denotes y, whose equation is x square minus x minus 2. So once you try to plot it using the simple function theories and graph formulas, you can get a function that looks like this. So this thing you have already been through in school and college as part of your engineering curriculum. So it will be good to just, look at the few important graphs. For example, now you're looking at the one for quadratic equation. We also have graphs for sine, cosine, tangent, which look pretty interesting. So it's good to have a brief idea of how these graphs look like. So this can add a lot of help for you and make your work with deep neural networks much more faster and easier. So okay, moving on. So we have defined a function for a quadratic equation, which is x square plus 5, and we are generating the values for it by passing arguments. Now that we have generated the values, let us look for these values, how it looks in a graph. So we have defined Matplotlib and Seaborn, and now let us see how the graph looks like. So this is the graph that we have defined by plotting x and y. So x are the values here, and y are the values here, and this is the graph that we have obtained using this function, which is x squared plus 5. So this is what the graph that we have obtained. Next thing is I will show you how the process happens. So as we have seen previously, in typical optimization algorithms for gradient descent in this case, and then especially in DNNs, which are neural networks, the objective is to get the loss value, the value of the loss function, which is ultimately is the cost function, to a minimum value as possible. So a high loss or cost function value is undesirable. So the neural network tunes its weights, goes through different series of back propagation and forward propagation that we have seen previously in our linear regression notebook. I mean, logistic regression notebook, if you can recollect. So objective is to get the loss function value as low as possible. So this is the formula for the gradient descent function. So xn plus 1 is equal to xn minus gamma into delta of x of xn. So this is the main formula that is applied to get the gradient descent optimization done. So I will just show you how we implement this using the derivatives and differentiation in the Jupyter notebook. So here we have a function which is x squared plus 5, and we want to compute gradient of this function. So gradient is nothing but the differentiation of the given function. So the differentiation plus 5 gives 2x. So that is what this one does. So same thing that is applied here. So we'll be using SymPy. So this SymPy is used for the differentiation operations in Python. So we'll define a symbol called x in SymPy, which is the applied for differentiation. We have defined a function and get the differentiated value of this function. So function is defined as x squared plus 5, and the differential of this is 2x. So now that we have taken the first derivative, so you might get a doubt that, okay, what if it is a really big equation? Let's say to the order of 10, x power 10 plus 2x plus 1, something in that order. So you might argue that, okay, why do we even want to take a first derivative? Why can't we take the nth derivative or the order minus 1 derivative? So there are a few good reasons why we take the first derivative. The first one is which is the direction of the function. So direction of function states that is whether the function is increasing or decreasing. So if the value is plus, the function is increasing, or if it is negative, the function is decreasing. So this thing also tells you about the slope of the function, whether the function has a positive slope or a negative slope. Slope is calculated, if you had learned in your functions and graph theory and a few of the quadratic equations back in school. You had a little bit of this in differentiation also. Yeah. So slope is calculated as the differential of a function. So the slope of the function x squared plus 5 is nothing but d by dx of x squared plus 5, right? So d by dx of x squared plus 5 is 2x, which is a pretty important one in the case of calculating the optimal point in the gradient descent algorithm. So this one I will leave it up to you as for reading. And the same one, I'm going to implement it in the next cell. So now that we have this formula, if you remember, xn plus 1 is equal to xn minus gamma into delta f of xn. So what we now do is, delta f of xn is nothing but the gradient value, which we have calculated here and saved as f prime. So this is nothing but the differentiation of f of x. F of x was x squared plus 5. Now that we will set a gamma value of, let's say, 0.01 and the x value of 6. That means at the location x is equal to 6, what is the value? And go through 5000 iterations. By now you must be knowing what iterations are. Since we do not have gamma provided, let us define gamma as 0.01, which is this, and 5000 extra iterations, and we already have the differential of f of x. So let us just iterate 5000 iterations. This is the gradient value, which is 2 power x, which is the gradient, the differential of x squared plus 5, and run the formula. X1 is equal to x minus gamma into a gradient of x, and redefine x as x1, and continue this process 5000 times. And let's see the results, how it looks like. So now that it is run, we have run through 5000 iterations, and got an x value of 0.0002. In this case, is actually in the sense of gradient descent and optimization algorithms, the optimal point where the loss is at its minimum. So that is what we have achieved here. So this one shows how the gradient descent algorithm works to get the optimal loss function, loss value. So this process doesn't require to be coded up in your deep learning notebooks as we have seen previously. Just a simple back propagation, forward propagation, if you'd like to implement it in that as we have done previously, you can do that, or call a function as we had seen previously to implement the same. So this is what happens in the background when the gradient descent algorithm in your neural network tries to get the optimal value, loss value. So in this one, you notice that in 5000 iterations, the x value is pretty close to 0. When if you typecast it into an integer, it will definitely become a 0. So if you look at this plot, this is what has happened. In 5000 iterations, the ball has come down to here till a point which is pretty close to 0. So this is just an animation that denotes the same. So this one is more like a theory lesson to illustrate how gradient descent occurs in neural nets. In the sense of neural networks, you have image vectors, text vectors, and so many interesting vectors that you now come across. So let us not get in depth of this different vectors that may confuse us. Let us first look at why we require the vectorization and how we can apply vectorization in our neural network problems. So first thing is this, as you know, the reason why you chose deep learning is because of two things. One thing is that you told me that you wanted to it has better performance, correct? Second
Yeah.
thing is you have big data, which one when run upon deep learning, deep neural networks perform exceptionally well. So same thing. So vectorization is applied only upon it performs excellently well upon data that is really big. As you can see in the point number one, when you want to multiply two matrices, for example, two vectors, then when in this case, let us say they are uh, 10 million in their dimension. So a normal matrix multiplication using Python codes or basic rules will not work, as you can see in this notebook, which we'll implement very soon. So for that case, we
Yeah.
will be using the NumPy's dot product to multiply these two matrices, these two really big
Mm.
matrices, so that we can have a quicker implementation, and this is much more efficient than the other way, which was, let us say, the traditional way, or let us call it the non-vectorized approach. So you can save a lot of computation time, and especially when you have like a million matrices like this, right? So it is going to take a significant amount of time, which may run into a couple of days to a week. So instead of, if you run a vectorized approach into this, it won't even take a couple of minutes. It's pretty fast in its implementation. So first thing, let us define the required packages of NumPy as NP and time to take the time. We will be using time just to calculate how long each process, which is vectorized approach and non-vectorized approach, has taken. Now let's define two matrices using NumPy.random with entirely random numbers whose dimension is 10 million, as you can see here. So let's name them as A and B. So we have like really big matrices. Let us just see how these matrices look like. So this is an array of one dimension, which is of this, and let's see its shape. Shape won't be possible. Yeah, it just 10. It has 10 million items within it. So it's a pretty big matrix. So first, let us apply the vectorized approach. So you must be familiar with the dot product and the cross product in vectors from your school time. That's a simple form of multiplication. You also have the cross product, which is slightly more complicated, but used in different application. So in our
Okay.
uh, area, we will be working with dot product. So you can implement dot product using numpy dot of the two matrices you want to multiply, or let us say the two vectors you want to apply dot product upon. So using the np dot, let us apply this function, and see how long it takes to execute. So we'll be taking the time from tick and talk. Tick is the first time, the time before it started, and talk is the time after the process has executed, and see how long it takes in milliseconds. Now that we have applied the dot product, we have the result as so and so, and the time taken is 16.99 millisecond. So this is the time taken to apply dot product upon two really big matrices. In this case, each of the matrices of the dimension 10 million. So similarly, let us apply this in a different approach, the traditional matrix multiplication approach. So how you do this is you take the time before as we did previously, run it under a for loop where you multiply each element with the next element with its corresponding element in the other matrix, and take the time after this process has run and calculate the total time taken. So this one is a
Okay.
non-vectorized or traditional approach. So as you can see, it's running. Okay, now it's done. Process time is one thing, and the next one is the results are pretty much the same:
Yeah.
2499805 and 2499805. Though there's a small difference in the decimal point, let us just overlook that. But the most significant difference is time, because here it
Yeah.
takes 16 millisecond, and here it has taken one. This is 12,850 milliseconds, which is like really long. So, in the sense of deep learning, especially in handling really big data problems, the vectorized approach is the most preferred approach of handling the data rather than the traditional approach. For example, in this case, we have struggled really hard to implement the dot product between two matrices. So that is what this one is. So this is just an illustration of how you apply vectorization in neural networks. In this case, using the NumPy's dot product between two matrices. So why do we have to vectorize? So in the sense of the neural networks or deep learning, you consider any data point, for example, an image, or let's say a string which is converted into a numeric form as a vector. So when there is a massive amount of volume of this, let's say you're working with high dimensional images of each image of being 2156 by 2156 resolution. You have a million such images. Let's say you want to apply a transformation. For example, you want to convert it into, let's say, a different scale of colors, let's say. And to apply that, let's say you're applying an OpenCV operation, which is comes under image processing, to convert these colors into another scale by multiplying it by a matrix. Because by now you'll be understanding that most of the images are nothing but NumPy arrays. So to apply this operation over a million images of with each image of being about 2000 by 2000 resolution, it is going to take a significant amount of time in its processing. Instead of taking the traditional approach like this, won't it be better of just applying NumPy dot product across all the images and getting your job done in a much uh, lesser time? So that is one of the main reasons why we prefer the vectorized approach over the non-vectorized approach. Though you can apply non-vectorized approach across smaller data, for example, smaller, let's say, matrices or arrays. So you do not have to waste your time. Though in its execution, the vectorized approach seems much simpler, which is nothing but a single line implementation, whereas a non-vectorized approach is under a for loop, and you just keep summing the all the row contents by multiplying each of them together. So I prefer this one. So this one is a simpler implementation.